There we go. community. My name's Emily, and it's so great to have you with us today. If this is your first time joining us, the band is going to kick things off for us in just a minute. Lyrics will be up on the screen so you can engage with the music however you'd like. Sit or stand however you feel most comfortable. After that, one of our pastors is going to share a message with us. All in all, our service will last for about an hour. If you're new, make sure to head down to the black table in the corner of the cafe on your way out. We've got something just for you. If you're joining us online, wherever you're joining from, thanks for making community a part of your weekend. Last thing, if you're in the building with us, we've got some awesome programs happening downstairs for your kids. They're safe, secure, and your kids are bound to have a blast. You've still got time to check them in. If you head to the big blue wall in the main entrance, you can check them in there. And with that being said, we're gonna get started here in just a moment. So find your seats if you haven't already. Here we go.
We're going to sing together if you'd like to stand. With us. You can have a seat.
All right, good morning. My name's Allie. This is Tony.
Hi.
And we just love it when we can all be together like this. And we hope that whether you've been here a long time or this is your first time here, that you feel the same way.
And if it is your first time here, we're so glad that you're here with us, and we have a little gift for you. Downstairs in our cafe, in the corner of the room is our information table, and on that table is a little something we would love for you to take home with you today. And if you're comfortable sharing that you were here with us today, you can connect with us by filling out our Connect form, either down at that table or even right in your seats. There's a QR code on the back of the chair in front of you. If you scan that, fill out that form, that'll let us know that you were here with us today. And just to say thanks, we'll send you a little something in the mail this week.
And if you have been with us for any time at all and you've experienced anything good here, it is largely because of people who give generously and consistently. And if giving is something that you would be interested in doing, then you can go to our website at communitychurch.net/give to start giving there. But if this is not your church, we don't want you to feel any pressure. We're just happy that you're here.
Yeah, and we've partnered again this year with Babylon Strong for our giving trees out in the lobby. There were so many tags representing gifts that children in our community wanted this season, and so many of those tags are already gone, taken by you. So thank you so much. But if you did take one of those tags, we just ask that those gifts make their way back here by December 15th.
So it's December, which means the Giving Tree, and it also means our 6th annual 12 Days of Christmas. Yes, I am so excited for this to get started. So we purchase items from shops in the village, and every day from December 13th through the 24th, we give away those items to you guys. So if you want to participate, you can follow along on our Instagram or our Facebook, and the night before we'll share which shop, the item, and how many of each item will be available. So if you show up the next day at the designated shop at the designated time, then you can walk away with one of those if you're one of the first ones there.
All right, so that's all we have for you today. You guys are welcome to stand and join us in our next song.
The day your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you, holy. Great are you, Lord. You give light, you are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you, holy. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you, holy. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you, holy. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you, holy. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord.
Thank you for singing with us. You can have a seat.
When I was younger, I never wondered if I was good or I was sad. Torture my teachers, tormented preachers. I'd say my childhood was grand. I love it through danger. Darkness is not a stranger. Needs my appetite. You got some trouble coming. I'm buying in a cold size. Naughty, don't play nice.
All right. Well, this week we are in the third part, smack in the middle of a series called Naughty or Nice, Naughty or Nice. We're kind of ripping off the song Santa Claus is Coming to Town. He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Good. Right. Now, if you've ever stopped and thought about that line, that's really what's at the heart of what this series has been about over the last few weeks. Like, when it comes to listening to God, when it comes to doing the right thing, when it comes to choosing right from wrong or good from bad, are we simply doing good for goodness sake, right? Like for some vague concept of goodness and its sake. Really, is that the motive? We're questioning what's at what we would call the motivational structure of the heart. Why would you listen to God? Why would you try to obey him? What's all of this about? Is it really just for the sake of right or wrong? Naughty or nice? Good for goodness sake? So one of my good friends, his name is Tori Abrahamson. He used to live on Long Island, but then he moved off of Long Island, like one of those people that moves off of Long Island, you know? But he actually moved to a colder place, so give him the benefit of the doubt. He's up in New Hampshire. But for years, we've been doing this thing where we'd gamble whenever we were together. Now, we wouldn't gamble with money. We would gamble with embarrassment and humiliation. So if you've ever seen the show Impractical Jokers, where a bunch of friends just try to like make life miserable for one another and embarrass each other, we would do that. And so I've done all sorts of things that not a lot of people have done for really just dumb reasons. I've eaten really dumb things. I had to have my thighs waxed by a bunch of guys that have never waxed anything before. And it's difficult. It's difficult. I got burned. I got bruised. It was horrible. I left with just patches all over my thighs. He's had to sing in places, public places, where it's not typically set up for a singing situation, but we just try to like humiliate each other and have some fun with it. And there have been moments, especially when I'm the one doing the thing, where I'm like, why? You know, why am I doing this? Why am I humiliating myself? Why do we participate in this game? It's like made up rules to a made up game. And if you're like some people, at certain points in life, when you think about listening to God, the rules, the instructions, all of that, sometimes it can feel like, are we just obeying made up rules to a made up game? What's behind all of this? And at the heart of this idea is an understanding, or maybe we could say a distorted understanding of this word sin. Sin. Now, if you ever heard the word sin, typically it's used to describe when someone steps outside of one of the lines that God has drawn, right? When you break a rule in God's eyes. And if you look at sin like it's just like you did something where God's like, I didn't like that, then you live with the understanding that sin is wrong. Like that's the phrase. It's wrong to sin, to break one of God's rules. And the word sin becomes a word that's used only in religious context, and it lacks weight. But in week one, we broke that down a little bit and looked at what's behind all of it. Look at how the biblical authors, specifically Jesus' brother James, how he described the idea of sin. And what he would say is, it's not wrong. It's not about naughty or nice, or it's not just wrong. It goes way further than that. And the basis of this series, if you walk away with nothing else, it's not that sin is wrong. It's that sin is toxic. It takes you further than you're willing to go. It keeps you longer than you're willing to stay, and it makes you pay a price you don't want to pay. It can literally physically kill you, but it more often kills, destroys, erodes the things in life that are good, that we love. It breaks down relationships. It ruins futures. It's destructive at its core. Just a few days ago, I was reading something in a book where this guy was like, a lot of us think that God punishes sin, but at the heart of that statement is really a misunderstanding of the whole, or at least an incomplete version of an understanding of sin. Sin punishes sin. That's the idea of it. It's like drinking poison. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna mess things up. It's going to make things worse than they are. And so God, being good, warns us. It's like, you don't want to go down that road. That's going to lead you to a place you don't want to be. We said on week one that God is not concerned about your grade. He's concerned about your good. And if everything you read and everything you hear and everything you're taught about the things that Jesus said, if you keep that in the back of your mind, like, okay, maybe I don't understand all of the reasoning behind this, but the ultimate motive is for my good, it will change the way you hear everything that Jesus said, that God said, everything that the biblical authors have recorded. And so last week, Tom was up here, he talked a little bit about envy, one of these like sins, and talked about how it's not that envy is wrong, it's that it's pointless. We looked at the words of a guy named Solomon, this ancient wise man. He's like, it's like when you envy, it's like chasing the wind. You never feel like, I got it, right? And it's not just pointless, it goes beyond that. It's toxic. It ruins relationships, and you've seen it. Maybe you've seen it in your own life, or maybe you've witnessed it in the lives of other people, where you're like, they don't like each other anymore, and they may say it's because of this, but really it's because he has what he wants, or she has what she wants. And you see it, and you see how a beautiful relationship, something that was so good and life-giving, is just torn because something toxic entered the picture. And was it wrong? That's the wrong question. Was it toxic? You bet it was. So this week, we're looking at another one of these things. It's something that we don't give too much attention to, but it's something that we're all affected by to one extent or another. There's a famous author who writes about these things, and he would say, the thing that we're talking about today, like all the other vices are mere flea bites in comparison to this. Like this is the thing that is the thing beneath so many other things. It creates a world of chaos. It has destroyed marriages. It's destroyed futures, families, friendships. It's caused problems in governments. It's ruined communities. It might be the thing in your life right now. It might be the thing in your life today that's causing you the most havoc. And maybe it's because it's going unaddressed or undiagnosed or maybe even misdiagnosed. What we're talking about today is something called pride. Pride. Now, I don't know what comes to your mind when you think of pride, but there is a good type of pride, right? Like if you have a child or someone you mentor or someone you're close with and you see them do something and you know what went into that, you know the hard work that was involved in that, and there's a deep sense of satisfaction and appreciation. You'd say like, oh, I'm so proud of them, or I'm so proud of that. That's a good type of pride. That's not what we're talking about. It could become a bad type of pride, but that's a good thing, and that's a totally different discussion. Then there's a lot of times when we think of pride in a negative sense, pride you don't want to have. A lot of times if you're like me, my mind goes to like superiority forms of pride, like someone like, I'm the man, Someone puffing themselves up, someone who thinks that they're all that, or someone with a lot of confidence. Now, that can be a form of pride, but seeing pride in that light it's really not the whole picture. And a lot of times what you'll see is someone, a well-intentioned person, trying to avoid pride because they understand pride as feeling superior or of feeling very confident. They'll go the other way and start to speak in a damaging way about themselves, or they'll tear themselves down, or they won't acknowledge something about them that's good, like a gift that they have because they want to avoid pride. And if you think about it, there are situations in life where you want people to be confident, where you want them to be very confident. There are times in your life where you need to be confident, right? Like I had knee surgery a little while ago. And leading up to it, I was fine. I wasn't really worried about it. But then they put that gown on me, and I was in the bed with the sheets, and I'm in all the beeping in the room, and I'm getting ready to go in, and I know they're going to put me out, right? And so the anesthesiologist comes over. I want to see confidence in that guy. I don't want to wake up in the middle. I don't want to not wake up. I don't want him to walk over thinking like, there's other people who can do this better than I can. No, and I wouldn't say it's a pride thing. That is a good thing. So how do you know? Like really then the question is, what is going on within us? What is pride? What's the thing that causes the damage? The damage. Solomon, the same guy that we looked at last week, has some very clear things to say about pride. Before we define it, here's what he says. He wrote a lot of the book of Proverbs. He says the same thing a bunch of different ways, and this comes up in a lot of different places, but the essence is this. He says, when pride comes, then comes disgrace. Like that's, when you see pride, expect disgrace after that. Like it comes with a promise of breakdown. He says in another place, very similar things, he said, what pride goes before destruction. Not pride goes before greater achievement. Not pride goes before progress, but pride goes before destruction. In other words, when you see pride, wait for it, things are about to collapse. It does not lead to a good place. You may get away with it for a little while, but eventually it causes things to break down. It's toxic. It's toxic. And so what is the thing? Is it confidence? C.S. Lewis is a famous writer. He's passed away. He wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. He also wrote a book called Mere Christianity. And in that book, there's probably one of the most famous chapters on pride in all of Christian literature. And here's how he defines pride. He says that pride it's ruthless, sleepless, like it does not quit. It's unsmiling, ruthless, sleepless, unsmiling concentration on the self. It takes everything and makes it about me. If we're speaking in a metaphorical sense, it's like there's a case. It's the case for who I am and what I'm worth. And when pride steps into the picture, now it's my job to defend who I am and what I'm worth. So the things I'm doing, I'm not doing for the sake of doing them. I'm doing them because of what they say or what I hope they'll say about me. It's a fixation with the self. Who I am and what I'm worth. Pride, so in that sense, then, pride can show up and can look very different at different times. It can be a superiority thing. It can be like, I did this, therefore I'm the man. I'm the best, right? It can also be, I didn't do this, and because I'm letting that speak to who I am and what I'm worth, because I'm giving that a place in that argument, in the case for who I am and what I'm worth, now I'm not enough. Right? It can show up big or it can show up small. It can sound like I'm the most important person in the room. It can sound like I'm the least important person in the room. It can sound like I'm the most valuable. It can sound like I'm worthless. But when you take something in your life, whatever it may be, and you allow it to serve as evidence for or against you, in the case for who you are and what you're worth, that's when you know pride has entered the discussion. It's ruthless, it's sleepless, it's unsmiling, there is no joy. It's concentration on the self, the case for who I am and what I'm worth. And it's my job to define it. Pride can disguise itself, right? So you may see someone who wants more and more and more and more and more, and it's all for them, right? And they're not generous. And you might say, that guy's got a problem with greed, and he might. Or he might want what more and more and more and more and more says about him. In which case he's got a problem with pride. That's right. You may think that you have a problem with anger, right? Maybe somebody cuts you off in traffic, or you don't like the way someone responds to you, and it's like fire within you, and you're just ready to go. And maybe you would say, yeah, I got a short fuse, right? I get angry really quickly, and maybe you don't like what that thing said about who you are and what you feel like you're worth. And really what's at the heart of that is pride, not anger. Anger is just showing itself because you can't see pride. It's not nearly as visible as things like anger or greed. It's sinister, right? Like I was reading, like a man can lust after a woman because he wants her. But at least when lust is driving a situation, at least the man wants the woman, right? But when pride has seeped into that situation, a man wants a woman not because he wants the woman, but because he wants what being with that woman is going to say about him. Pride makes people objects, evidence in the case for or against who I am and what I'm worth. It's an ongoing case, and it's my job to defend myself. Pride doesn't quit. It has an appetite that cannot be satisfied. If you've ever watched The Greatest Showman, it's a great movie. It's got like one of the best soundtracks ever. It's always on in our house. It's a story about P.T. Barnum and the circus. And one of the themes in that movie is his pride. He never feels like he's enough. He's literally the man in the center, and he never feels like he's made it. He never feels like he's worth something. And a really cool way that they try to communicate this to you is any time in the movie they show you what things look like through his eyes, like the camera switches to a first-person perspective. He sees the crowds, and they're all cheering, but he doesn't hear it. It's muted. And what they're trying to communicate is it's never enough. It's never enough. When you are the one who has to define who you are and what you're worth, you will never get there. It disguises itself. It's damaging. It makes you delicate because all things become identity things. It redefines the agenda. Right? And now, like, working isn't for the sake of working and providing. It's what working is going to say about me. Achievement isn't for the sake of progress. It's achieving for the sake of what that achievement is going to say about me. It cannot be quenched. It's illogical. It keeps us from, it causes us to, I listened to a podcast a little while ago. It was a basketball, or it wasn't a basketball podcast, but they were talking about basketball. There's a guy named Wilt Chamberlain. If you ever heard of him, he was around like in the 70s. He scored 100 points in one game, but he had trouble shooting foul shots. Well, this guy named Rick Barry came along. If you know Rick Barry, he's the only person in the history of the NBA to shoot foul shots. They call it granny style. It's not like a very flattering way to talk about the way someone shoots a foul shot, but you go like this and you just like throw it up. And Rick Barry was a fantastic free throw shooter. He shot like this. Well, one day, Rick Barry met with Wilt Chamberlain because Wilt Chamberlain can't shoot a foul shot, and Rick Barry shows him like, hey, just do it like this. Like, this is how it should work. Wilt Chamberlain tried to do that for one game, and he scored 100 points in that game and shot around 90% from the free throw line when he shot like that. But he gave up on it. And so has every other player in the history of basketball because you look ridiculous doing this from the, even though like they've studied it, they've like studied the way the body moves. If you practice doing this, you will get better quicker than you will like this. But nobody does. I don't. Why? Pride. Because you don't want to look like that. There's one pastor, he says, pride keeps me from and causes me to. It's illogical, and it's a driving force, right? So it keeps me from, he says, it keeps me from apologizing, even after it's clear I made the mistake. It keeps me from admitting weakness and getting help. What kind of sense does that make? Right? We've got weaknesses. Why would you not get help? Pride. It keeps me from. It keeps me from celebrating, enjoying the success of others. It keeps me from ending the fight even when the issue is not the issue anymore. It causes me to keep arguing when I'm wrong, whether it's 5% or 100%. It causes me to pretend I know when I don't. It causes me to lie to protect my reputation. It causes me to retaliate, to give the look or the finger when I'm cut off in traffic. Or when I feel slighted. It causes me to get defensive when I'm corrected rather than being open to what I might learn from the situation. Because I'm on trial, and everything is evidence for or against the case for who I am and what I'm worth. It keeps me from, and it causes me to. If you're a visual person, right, this might be helpful. Like pride, think of it like this. Like all of us have this concept of self, right? Let's say it's this bucket. And when this bucket is full, you and I are in a healthy place. Like we were made for a full bucket. And you know what goes in this bucket? Anything that makes me feel accepted, seen, known, accepted, respected, or loved. Like that's what, and when this is full, I feel valuable. I'm functioning from a healthy place. Anything that you could say liked, mentioned, friended, or followed goes in here. Pride makes filling this bucket my job. Makes keeping this bucket full my job. But the problem with this bucket, this sense of self, is that it's broken. There's a hole in it. All of us have a broken view of ourselves. Like it's part of the human condition. There's a leak in our concept of our own worth and value. You know how you know that your concept of self is broken? Because things only draw attention to themselves within you, like the parts of your body, inside and outside, only draw attention to themselves when they're hurt, right? Like if you had breakfast this morning, how many of you, while you were eating breakfast, eating your cornflakes, were just like, man, my jaw is just working so effectively right now, the way it just, boom, right on rhythm. My teeth, they're just mushing the cornflakes so nicely. My salivary glands, just helping in the whole digestive process. No, you're not thinking about that, because unless you just got punched in the jaw, unless you've got TMJ or there's something up with your tooth, that's when it's drawing attention to itself. This is what pride does. This is how you know the ego is broken, the sense of self is broken, because it wedges its way into issues it has no business being in. This discussion was about your performance at work. It was not about who you are and what you're worth. That argument was about the fact that you didn't do what you said you were going to do. It has nothing to do with who you are and what you're worth. But when pride steps in, it forces us to keep this full and defend it. And so everything becomes a means to this end, right? Like there may have been a time where you played basketball because you loved the game. And because it was fun to compete and to improve and to grow. But when pride seeps into the situation, all of a sudden it becomes just another thing in my bucket. Now it's about who I am and what I'm worth, because I want what being a good player says about me. And when you see people respond like disproportionately, when it's like, whoa, why is that guy so upset? This is just a game. It's because it's not just a game. It's about the bucket. It's about who he is and what he's worth. Maybe you love to play an instrument and you started it because you love the way it sounds and you want to learn something new and grow. But when pride takes over, all of a sudden it's not about playing the guitar. It's about being the guy who plays the guitar. Like work is no longer about work. It's about what work will say about you. Dating that person is no longer about dating them. It's about what being with someone is saying about you. Your appearance is no longer about good hygiene or staying healthy. It's about what your appearance says about you. It's ruthless, it's sleepless, unsmiling concentration on the self. So the question is, what do we do? Right? What do you do with pride? Well, Tom, last week when we talked about envy, he talked about the power of just naming it. How just recognizing in a safe place, like, hey, I said I was angry about that, but really I'm angry that I don't have what they have, meaning I'm envious. Just giving it language is a huge step in the right direction. The same thing is true of pride. Just recognizing and giving people in your life who are safe the freedom to recognize when they see pride in you. Not to condemn you, not to judge you, say, hey, that's pride, but to say, hold on a second. Like, maybe you're letting this thing speak to who you are and what you're worth, and the thing is no longer about the thing. Like, if you give yourself the space and the freedom to call it what it is, that's a huge step in the right direction. And if you're in a safe relationship where there's someone you love and trust, and they can say, hey, I think you're letting this speak to your identity, that could be a huge point of progress. But if you're not someone who follows Jesus, if you're not into the whole church thing, if you're not interested in obeying God, I think that could be helpful for you, but that's kind of as far as I can take you. But if you are a follower of Jesus, or if you're at least curious about what followers of Jesus believe about pride, it's with pride in the heart that I think, at least one of the places where we can most clearly see how what we believe about Jesus isn't just about what we believe and checking off certain boxes, but how it actually can transform us on a day-to-day basis. A guy by the name of Paul of Tarsus, or Saint Paul, or the Apostle Paul, he wrote a lot about pride. And there's this one section in a letter he wrote to the church in Corinth where he addresses pride, but he actually doesn't even mention it. But it's a perfect explanation of how to deal with the bucket. And I think what you'll see is that it's totally countercultural. But there's something about it that is so light and so free. There's something about it that can address the deep-rooted motivational structure of the heart. Here's what he says. He's arguing for his credibility to this church in Corinth. And he says this. He says, I care very little if I'm judged by you or any human court. Now, what's important to know is that at this point in the letter, no one has mentioned a court. There's no one's suing anybody. There's no legal charge. What he's talking about, he's creating a metaphorical picture, right? And this word for judged isn't condemn. It's not nitpick. It's not even analyzing or examining behavior. The word for judged has this idea of declaring a verdict, of issuing a verdict. And what he's saying is, I care very little about what your verdict is regarding who I am and what I'm worth, or any group of humans, any group who decide who I am and what I'm worth. In other words, it is not your job or their job to fill my bucket. Now, in our culture, most of us would be like, yeah, like we love that. Yeah, you can't tell me who I am, what I'm worth, right? Like you don't get to say that, I don't care. That's like celebrated. Most people would agree with that in our culture, right? But what he says next, nobody says. Nobody. He says, indeed, I do not even judge myself. Now, he's not saying he's unaware of his behavior. He's not saying he doesn't examine the way that he's living. What he's saying is, it's not my job to issue the verdict about me. In other words, you don't get to fill my bucket, but it's not even my job to keep my bucket full. He says, my conscience is clear, but that doesn't make me innocent. In other words, he's showing his self-awareness. He's like, I am aware of how I live. I am aware of the things that I do. But it's not those things that I use in order to find my worth or my value. And then he says very clearly, he says, it's the Lord who judges me. Now again, what he's not saying is it's God who examines and nitpicks my behavior. He's saying there is one place where I get the verdict. There is one place that I go to find who I am and what I'm worth. And what he would say is that it's from Jesus. Now, here's the thing that's pretty mind-blowing, and Paul has spilled a lot of ink explaining this in a lot of other letters in the New Testament. All right? What we believe, what we call the gospel, right? Everything that Paul taught, that Jesus taught, what the church has believed and taught for 2,000 years. The thing that makes the gospel different from every other religious system out there is that it starts with a verdict and is followed by a performance. In every other motivational structure, you work for a verdict, right? In what we call the gospel, which means good news, because it's good news. The verdict comes, and then the performance is a response to the verdict. Like the whole idea of Jesus dying, of giving himself for us, of dying on the cross, dying for our sins. The idea is, yes, he does that to demonstrate his love for us. He did that to pay for our sins. But what we're also taught is that so much of what is true about him becomes true about us because of what he has done. And so there's this scene in one of the gospel stories where God looks down at Jesus and says, "You are my child, you're my son, and with you I am well pleased." In other words, you're my child and you bring me joy. And what Paul would teach was that that is true of us, meaning God looks at us and finds joy in who we are because we are his. He's not saying, like, you're my child, so come to me for joy. He's not saying, you're my child, you get your joy from me. He's saying, you are my child and you bring me joy. And it starts there. And from there comes our motivation for living. And that may not make sense, but think about it like this. You are not working when that's true of you, and when you believe that, you're functioning with a full bucket. And you're not working for love. You're working from love. You're not working to feel valuable. You're working because you know you have value. One is ruthless, sleepless, and unsmiling. It's exhausting to have to prove you're worth something. And the other is light and free. So the answer, and this is the good news, the answer is not to get rid of the bucket. You and I were made with a bucket. We were made to know that we are seen, known, respected, accepted, and loved. You can't live without knowing that. But the answer is to bring it to the one who can fill it and keep it full. To find who you are and what you're worth in what he says about you. Not because you've earned it, but because he has said it. And when you bring yourself back to that place over and over and over again, it will change the way that you live. And slowly, pride will lose its grip on you. Like you can go back to doing things for the joy of doing them. You can play a sport not because winning or losing is going to determine how you feel about yourself, but because you love the sport. You can work for the joy of working, not to prove your worth existing. And that's good news. It's good news. What Paul would say is that the verdict is in and the case is closed. So get out of the courtroom. You don't have to use the things in your life as evidence in the case of your worth, your value as a person. This is not a one-time thing. It's not like you believe it and then it's over and you never think about it again. It's a regular, every day, every moment of everyday reminder, because all of us will drift into performing for the verdict rather than allowing the verdict to determine the performance. All of us will drift into working to prove ourselves. I was telling the Thursday night group that just like these past 4 weeks for me have just been nuts. I've had to travel. There's been a lot going on. It's Christmas season. Things have been crazy. And where I go when I get exhausted, I just find myself drifting into working to like prove like I'm worth something. And it's exhausting. It's ruthless, sleepless, and unsmiling. But there was a moment like Thursday morning, it's like got away, got quiet, and stopped and recognized like I am working to prove my worth, not working from the confidence that I am worth something to God. And it's counterintuitive. But if you see it through the eyes of a father looking at their children, it makes all the sense in the world. I was explaining this to my daughter a couple nights ago. I was like, I love you and you make me so happy. And she was like, why? And I said, because you're mine. The end. And that's how God wants us to understand our relationship to him. Because you're mine and you bring me joy. The end. Because of what Jesus has done for us, not because of what you're trying to do to prove your worth. I want to leave you with this. C.S. Lewis This is from his most famous chapter in Mere Christianity. It's all about pride. Here's what he says. I think it's a good picture. He says, we must not think pride is something that God forbids because he's offended at it, or that humility is something he demands as due to his own dignity, as if God himself was proud. He's not in the least worried about his own dignity. The point is, he wants you to know him, wants to give you himself. If you really get into any kind of touch with him, you will in fact be humble, delightedly humble, feeling the infinite relief of having for once got rid of all the silly nonsense about your own dignity, which has made you restless and unhappy all your life. He says to get near it, even for a moment, is like a drink of cold water to a man in the desert. It's light and free. Tim Keller would call this the freedom of self-forgetfulness. And what C.S. Lewis says there is that you become humble. Not like thinking less of yourself, not tearing yourself down, but humility, as he would define it, is thinking not less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Tim Keller would say, when you walk away from a humble person, you don't walk away thinking, wow, they were so humble. You think, wow, they were so concerned about me. Like they didn't feel like they had something to prove. They're living outside of the courtroom, and they're experiencing the freedom of self-forgetfulness. It all comes back to remembering you're his, and you bring him joy. And that's not something that you can work for. Let's pray. God, we're grateful that your love for us is not something we could purchase if we wanted to. It is not something we could earn if we wanted to. But it is offered freely to us because of who you are, not because of what we've done. It's so easy to drift back into performing, to prove something to ourselves, to the people around us, to try to earn our own value and sense of worth. But in those moments, God, would you bring us back to the truth of your love for us? Would you ground us in the reality that the verdict is in? And would you allow us to live from that, not for it? Would you allow us to live from being loved, not for love from others or love from you? God, would you do work within us on the motivational structure of our hearts? In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
We're going to sing one more song. You're invited to stand and join us.
The road may get hard, but you're always stronger. When the valley gets deeper, you're closer still. The storm may grow louder, but lightning and thunder won't change you or shake you. No, it never will. You didn't bring me this far to leave me here. You didn't ransom my heart to let it forget every wall you've torn down, every chain on the ground. You didn't bring me this far leave me. You won't leave me here. When I was younger, your love was so real, and as I've grown older, you still have my heart. And there have been moments I thought it was over, but what I call an ending, you call a start. You didn't bring me this far to
Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.